Well, as we have each night, let's follow up on the latest developments on this story from the House of Commons today. And from the foyer of the House, I'm joined this evening by NDP ethics critic Charlie Angus, and Liberal MP Mark Garneau is also asking questions about this in the House today. I should point out we invited the government to provide a member of Parliament to join this discussion, and they have done that most of the time over the last couple of weeks, but tonight that invitation was declined. Mr. Angus, let me start with you. What did we learn from the questions in the House today? What moved the story forward, if anything, today?
Well, I think you're looking at a government that's starting to really batten down the hatches because they know that this is about to get a lot worse. What's really moving the story now, and these were the focuses of the questions of Thomas Mulcair, is out of the allegations last week of Mike Duffy that he was told what to say in terms of this cover-up in the fake RBC loan. And the fake RBC loan has been the Prime Minister's talking points all along. Who did the coaching? So yesterday we found out from the Prime Minister that yes, they do work with senators on media lines. Who works with them? The Prime Minister said that that was a crazy allegation, wouldn't deal with it. Today, straightforward questions, Woodcock, Van Hemmen. Who in the Prime Minister's office could have played a coordinating role? The Prime Minister has an opportunity at each point to say this person had nothing to do with it, and that would end that line of questioning, but he doesn't. He keeps trying to go back to this false and very frayed narrative that there were only two players, even though the affidavits and even though the evidence is pointing to a much larger conspiracy all around the Prime Minister.
All right, Mr. Garneau, what do you say today about where we are in this story now after yet another day of steady questioning of the Prime Minister?
Well, I think that my colleague Joyce Murray made a good point. She basically said, what do people remember about Watergate? They don't actually remember what illegal activity took place. What they remember overwhelmingly is the cover-up. And this Prime Minister doesn't...
Do you think that was a fair comparison from her today, that this is starting to feel like Watergate?
Yes, I do. I mean, you know, in some ways it's apples and oranges, but in both cases the major dominating effect or factor is this feeling that there's a cover-up and things get deeper and deeper. That's, I think, what the Prime Minister has failed to recognize. You know, he took his tough position last Friday night, made his speech, said he couldn't care less. He was defiant and he was going to move forward. And but the point is, it's not going away. Okay,
let me ask the two of you if you picked up on something that I picked up on today. We should remind our audience again that we did invite a Conservative to join this discussion, and the government declined to send anybody to us. So. Mr. Angus, in his answers yesterday and again today, the Prime Minister has started using the word accurately. And as in the circumstances of the deal between Wright and Duffy were not accurately conveyed to me. And it's the first time I've heard him use that word 2 days in a row, almost as if some information may have been conveyed, but not precise information. Did you pick up on his use of that word accurately yesterday and today?
Well, I did find that very interesting. I also found that the Prime Minister, his response, they seem to be trying to limit their answers because they're getting caught out in the perpetual misinformation on who was involved, how they were involved, whether it was a few, whether it was just one, whether Nigel Wright quit, or I think they're back to being dismissed again was the language I think I heard today. Behind him, his caucus looks, I've never seen in my 10 years a caucus look as grim. It's white knuckles through the whole time. They're very, very, very rattled right now, and the Prime Minister's rattled. So you're seeing shifting in his language, but unfortunately, with all due respect to the Prime Minister, it's a shifting of weasel words. That it wasn't conveyed to me accurately gives an impression that he knew a fair bit, but he didn't know the full bit, so he can now say, well, I didn't know it wasn't completely accurate. So then who conveyed that information? Those are the questions, and when you ask that simple question, you get the stone wall again.
Mr. Garneau, should we be looking for something in the use of those words that I think I heard for the first time in the last couple of days?
Well, it's curious that Charlie mentions the word weasel word. This is exactly what I was thinking while he was answering it. You know, I think wise people have told probably all of us at some time or another, always tell the truth. It's the easiest thing to remember. And I think that with this Prime Minister who has changed his story, and I won't go through the long litany because you've heard us say it many times before, he's having problems, and this could be a harbinger of some new adjustments in his position, and this is perhaps sort of one way of easing us into it.
Let me shift gears just a little bit here. On the suspended senators issue, the current Treasury Board rules allow these 3 senators to continue to collect pensionable time while they're suspended. But Tony Clement served notice today. He views that as a glitch, and he'll change the laws if he has to make sure the senators who've been suspended lose that pension eligibility. Is that the right move by the government on this, Mr. Angus?
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, the issue that we've seen here with the Senate is always about protecting the perks. You know, with Raymond Levine going to jail, if you leave before you get thrown in jail, you get your pension. Mac Harb resigning, he's facing serious allegations of breach of trust and fraud. He gets his pension. The reason this is important is because these people can't be fired. And they aren't hired by the people of Canada. So since they're not accountable to the people of Canada, when they abuse the public trust, I think there needs to be a level of accountability that if you abuse the public trust like this, you are gone. I would normally be a little more understanding. A pension is an important thing for someone to have, but in the case of senators, I feel no sympathy for them because they seem to believe that they're above the people of Canada, and I have yet to see anybody on either the Liberal or Conservative Senate stand up and say to the Canadian people, we are sorry for what has happened under our watch. We are sorry for this abuse of trust. So
if Tony Clement is trying to make sure that they don't get pension eligibility for the next 2 years while they're suspended, you think that's the right move?
I don't believe I'm going to see it because they protect their own in the Senate. And Tony's
but if he's going to do it, is it the right move? Whether you see it or not, are they doing the right thing? And I guess we'll have to see whether he does it, but is that the right approach?
Well, like I'm not dodging the issue because you obviously know I don't believe that they're entitled to anything. My concern here is I don't believe for a second that the Conservatives didn't know the way the rules worked. It was nudge, nudge, wink, wink all the way along, and they wanted a political problem out of the way. They didn't want to really deal with the anger of the Canadian people saying we're fed up with this abuse of the taxpayers.
Okay, Mr. Garneau, let's get
I think their intent was to cut everything except the amended part, which was that they would be allowed to their insurance and health premiums. They just didn't work it out in their own mind. I remember I went away for 3 years when I was in the military to do some postgraduate work, and it was made very clear to me, of course, I wasn't receiving a salary during those 3 years, and they said to me, on your pension, you have the option of continuing on your pension, but you have to pay into it.
You have to buy
it in. Yeah. So why did that detail get forgotten? I think they were so much in a hurry in the Senate to sort of kick them out. They didn't take the time to work out all the details.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate your time again this evening, and
Thank you.
We'll talk again soon. I imagine the story continues, although next week is it's an off week of the House, so we won't see what we've seen in question period for the last couple of weeks here, but good to talk to you again. Thanks.
Thank you very much.